What's up, guys? Matt Brown from the LSR Podcast. Thanks for joining me and Dustin and Adam right here on the channel each and every week. And while you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and let us know in the comments if there's anything you'd like us to tackle in a future episode. But without further ado, well, let's kick things off here in Illinois, guys. I mean, this is a state that we have been really on top of, and it's been up and down and all around, and the craziness continues to happen. And Dustin, I think right after we finished recording last week, we get another change of course over there in Illinois.
If I was a bettor in Illinois, I'd be pretty confused on what's going on right now. But here's the latest. The governor has put back into effect an executive order saying that you can remotely sign up for sportsbooks, online sportsbooks in the state of Illinois, meaning you do not have to go to a physical casino anymore. This is an order that is in place at least until September 19th. We have no idea whether it will extend beyond that. As you know, if you've been listening to this, we've been talking about Illinois quite a bit, and at points in time in the past, the original law said you had to go to a physical sports book or casino to sign up. That order was rescinded. It was then put back in place where you had to go to casinos. And now we're back to you can remotely register. So if you're confused, I'm not sure I can keep up with it either. But right now, if you live in Illinois or on the border and you go into Illinois, you can sign up for BetRivers or DraftKings and do it remotely without having to go to a physical casino either in Chicago or East St. Louis, and you can start betting, which is good news for those people who are listening in Illinois and who are bettors who want to get in on the action more quickly.
Adam, very interesting whenever we see that date of September the 19th, because it's just long enough to get you through week 1 of the NFL and just short enough to stop the day before week 2 of the NFL actually happens. Well, the second Sunday anyway, when it comes to the NFL. But, it does at least get us through that first week of NFL, which, as we know, as far as player acquisition goes, I mean, certainly these sites would love for it just to be where you could do it all the time. However, I mean, if you at least can get through week 1 of the NFL, we know for customer acquisition, that's massive.
As long as this order stays in effect all the way through September 19th, this is a complete game changer in Illinois because we have that much certainty, right? We know that through basically, as you just said, week 2 of NFL season, that DraftKings, FanDuel, PointsBet, et cetera, are going to be able to acquire customers. And when you consider that they have giant piles of marketing cash sitting there for just this moment, then you know that no matter whether it gets shut down after September 19th again or not, you know that they're going to be able to acquire a significant amount of players over this next month. So as Dustin said, the executive order back in effect at least until September 19th. The governor's spokesperson has said that it is related to the safety of not going into casinos because of the COVID pandemic. But right now, if you're DraftKings or FanDuel, you're feeling very good about the way things are going. DraftKings, of course, already launched, and we know that FanDuel is probably to come next week.
I can tell you, I really wish I was a resident of Illinois because I cannot imagine the bonuses and the things that are about to come their way for those first 2 weeks of the NFL season. It is going to be spectacular. And if you live in Illinois, just know I'm jealous of you already. It is going to be unreal.
We already know that the commercials are getting obnoxious in other states that have gone live too. Like we know anecdotally that Colorado and Indiana are both pretty bad. We knew New Jersey and Pennsylvania, there's a glut of ads. Given the short time frame potentially for online sports betting registration, it's going to be nuts. And I think what FanDuel said, it was like you can sign up now, get $50 free before they even launch, which, $50 free is aggressive in the market right now. It's usually less than that. That will be on top of a deposit bonus. Mm-hmm. So, and God only knows on what you're watching the Bears game week 1, like you are going to see 5 million ads for FanDuel, DraftKings, BetRivers, anybody else who's live by that time.
Now, Adam, we know that there is, and the reason all this came about, we know that there was supposed to be the penalty box. And if you guys need the backstory on all that, tons of that written over at Legal Sports Report. So just go in there and you'll be able to find all the backstory to all this. But through all of that, we kind of started to see a little bit of chippiness going on here towards DraftKings.
Matt, It's just a glass of water, but I'm going to raise it in a toast to Jason Robbins and to Rush Street, because they've provided us with the most popcorn.gif story of 2020 so far. After DraftKings had this past weekend to acquire customers, the CEO of the company, Jason Robbins, took to Twitter early enough in the morning that I have to assume there were no controlled substances involved, not a couple of early morning beers or something like that, and talked about how good it felt to be able to do remote registration in Illinois, and that and I'm quoting here, corrupt idiots at Rush Street Gaming were not able to stand in their way any longer. That tweet was not up for long. It was deleted. We, of course, asked Rush Street for a response, and Rush Street came back with a one-line response that said that they pay taxes on every wager. They've never been asked to leave a state. And they do not have multiple class action lawsuits against them. Well, then.
Yeah.
Now, if you're new to this whole thing, you know the tensions go a long way back. Rush Street is very politically powerful in Illinois. They have had issues with trying to fight against DraftKings and FanDuel. It happened during the DFS days. It happened during the 2019 legislative process. And obviously, it's gone on throughout the regulation situation here.
So, Dustin, let's take a look at from a Rush Street point of view here, and you kind of look at this, and you saw sports betting get passed. You think that you're going to have this massive head start, and then you figure out real quick that massive head start that you thought you were going to have isn't really going to be all that massive, especially considering that DraftKings and FanDuel are going to get, like we said, the better part of the first 2 weeks of NFL season for customer acquisition here. So at least if you want to have a little bit of sympathy, you can kind of at least understand why they might be a little salty in all of this.
Yeah, and look, it's hard to blame Rivers Casino / Rush Street, because any company that was in the position they do, they're politically powerful in Illinois. They wielded that power to get what they wanted, and it's hard to blame them. Like any DraftKings would be doing the same thing. They'd be trying to shut people out. They're arguably trying to shut people out in Massachusetts during the legislation there. They're trying to do what they can to give themselves an advantage. If you have a lobbying advantage, you take that advantage and run with it. So it's hard to blame them. At the same time, Rivers Casino is definitely it's not like they're going to be in trouble here. They are the biggest brand, one of the biggest brands in Pennsylvania with online. They are, with their combined casinos in Pennsylvania, they're not as big as DraftKings and FanDuel, but pretty close. They run a pretty close number 3 in that state. They do well in New Jersey. They have a casino in Philadelphia. They've done well there, even with a late launch. So, and they have a huge marketing advantage in that, they have a casino near Chicago. So it's not, they're not going to be hurting for all of this. They're just going to have to pivot their strategy to deal with the reality of we can't count on people coming to Chicago, to our Chicago casino and signing up. We have to go to our online strategy, which should be fine, and they should be fine. Just there is the bad blood with DFS companies. This goes back to all the way to like 2015 with trying to pass a DFS law there. It's a long time in the making. So, but I don't think they're in bad shape. It's just they obviously wanted things to go one way, and it's not going to go that way. And God only knows, for handicapping whether Illinois goes back to in-person registration, I don't have a guess right now. And how much it's tied to the pandemic. It does seem to be a public health concern. So whether we get to September 19th and we're seeing an extension of this, who knows? But I think Rush Street will be okay. Rush Street, Rivers Casino.
And Adam, just if people aren't familiar kind of with the geography of everything here, which it's my big thing here on our podcast, is the geography of everything. The reason this is so massive for DraftKings, because as Dustin just mentioned, yes, they have a casino, Rivers has a casino in proximity to Chicago, where all the people are, where the high net worth individuals are, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the casino that is partnered with DraftKings is literally way down on East St. Louis, which is like on the border right there on the river. It is like a 4.5, 5 hour drive or something like that from Chicago. So yeah, I mean, in theory, they would both have the same rules where people would have to go in and register in person, but it's pretty different when it's a very, very short drive and we're talking a 5 hour drive, which would be a 10 hour round trip.
Yeah, that is in no way practical, Matt. By the way, thank you for letting everybody in on your secret nickname here on the podcast, Map and Matty.
There it is.
East St. Louis is in no way convenient to the Chicago market. And to Dustin's point, what we're essentially talking about here is that Rivers is going to have to spend, right? This is marketing spend they probably didn't want to have to put in, but to compete with DraftKings and FanDuel, you're going to have to put some money into the pot to keep up with the advertising and the risk-free bets, et cetera, that they're going to be able to offer. So now you look at who loses, right? Rivers loses out of this deal, and PointsBet. PointsBet had maybe the most convenient location in Chicago with Hawthorne Racecourse, and something that's about a 10-mile trip from downtown Chicago. And that was what they were counting on as their market edge in Illinois. That now goes away largely for them as well. And for Rivers, for PointsBet, you thought you had this market to yourself, and it is probably, if you consider everything that's available right now in the US, it is the single most lucrative market in the United States, because New York City is not technically open, although New Jersey is obviously capturing a fair amount of that traffic right now. But it's Chicago or bust, really, because look, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, these are great markets, but they're not the potential of Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking market 3 when it comes to everything with Chicago, and it's just so incredibly huge there. While I have, both of you here, I don't want to, I understand that you don't have any inside info. This is strictly something you would guess. But so we start approaching September the 19th, and are we going to be getting an extension of this, in your opinion? Does it matter? Does it matter where the state of Illinois stands in the whole COVID battle? Like what do you think is going on here? Or do you think, maybe this is just some sort of politics stuff that's going on behind the scenes?
Ultimately, go ahead, Dustin.
I think it's real. I think it really is related to public health. I think it is. I think it was bad look to say, "Oh, go back to casinos and sign up for sportsbook accounts," when we said for a little while you couldn't. That's a dumb policy. We've written stories about that. We've talked about it here. That was an objectively bad policy. So if COVID is still a problem in Illinois and for the casinos, there's 0 sense to sending people to casinos to sign up for an online sports betting account. So I really do think that's the case. I think if things are dramatically better when we're sitting here in less than a month, maybe it gets rescinded again. But I think this time, until things are a little bit more in control, I think it's that. I don't know how much of it's political. Maybe Adam has a little bit more insight, but I do think it's just a bad optics play to say go to a casino and sign up for something that we said you could do online. It just doesn't make any sense from a public policy standpoint.
What I would add to that is, don't underestimate the fact that there was some grassroots push here to try to get the in-person registration back. Our friend Joe Ostrowski, who works for the Score 670 in Chicago, got pretty fired up about this and led a coalition of people to contact the governor, to contact regulators in Illinois and say, this doesn't make sense for us to have to go to casinos during the height of the COVID pandemic. And this might well be a situation where that level of grassroots push, even though it might not be thousands on thousands of people, that might be enough for the governor's office to say, hey, you know what, Rush, DraftKings, we don't want any more to do with this, right? Like, it makes sense for us health-wise to have this order in place. And for as long as the COVID numbers are up, we're keeping it.